And take 2. Revelation 12, 1 through 5, the dragon opposed his God. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and he cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. The dragon opposes God. We have 3 divisions. 1, sign, Israel to bear the Messiah, verses 1 and 2. Number 2, another sign, dragon wants to kill Messiah, verses 3 and 4. And 3, the Son prophesied to rule all nations. A little bit of review. Revelation written by the Apostle John, we believe, 95 AD, on the Isle of Patmos, being a prisoner of the Lord on that desolate island. He wrote the prophecy and symbols. I was reminded this week. Revelation was sent to 7 churches, and obviously we have copies. Thank the Lord for that. And so that went through the Roman courier system, and that was the reason why it's written in symbols, because the Romans would read this and they say, what in the world are they talking about? You know, dragons and earthquakes and these strange creatures. But and by that time, Christians were persecuted. They were looking, well, this is nonsense. Go ahead and let it go through. Probably one of the reasons why it was written in symbols. The only book of the Bible that promises a blessing to those who, the one who reads it aloud, and those who hear it and keep it. And the passage right before us, the 7th trumpet has sounded, and that means that judgment is coming quickly. And more specifically, the 7 vile or bowl judgments, which are really bad. But here we kind of had, I guess you would call this a parenthetical material before the bowl judgments. And about the dragon. Satan has opposed God ever since he rebelled as Lucifer in heaven, tried to become God and failed, tried to take God's place, and was kicked out of heaven, though he still has an exodus. We know that because he's called the accuser of the brethren. And the book of Job, evidently, he goes to heaven quite often and accuses believers of how bad we are. So, number 1, we have a sign, Israel, the nation, to bear the Messiah, verses 1 and 2. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven. The Greek word is really semeion, which is sign. Sign emphasizes something that is visible that you see. Wonder has more emphasis on the miraculous of a miracle. But this is a sign, and a great sign in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Let me try to picture that. A woman clothed with the sun, surrounded by the sun, the moon under her feet. And the word for crown here is Stephanos, which is for the garland crown. They got the Olympic Games in those days. Very temporary crown. And the crown had 12 stars on it. Who is the woman, and what does all this mean? I think we get the help from Genesis 37, 9 through 11. Joseph has already had a dream and made his brothers very mad at him. And now God gives him another dream, which is a prophetic dream about the future. And he tells this dream that the dream is this: I had a dream, and the sun and the moon and 11 stars did obedience to me. That is, bow down to him. Do you know what that means? Jacob and Leah, his stepmother Israel, mother Rachel is dead. Leah and Jacob and 11 brothers will one day all bow down before Joseph, who's the second youngest son. Well, that went over real well with the sons, didn't it? Of course, you know the story of what they did to him. They would sell him as a slave, or originally intending to kill him. Even his father Jacob got on to him for, what? You think your mother, your father, and your brothers are all going to bow down to you? But he kept the words. He remembered them. But there you have the sun and moon, Joseph, Leah, who most of the sons of Jacob were by Leah, 11 stars, 11 brothers, of course. Joseph makes the 12th star, so this is symbolic of the nation of Israel. And there would be a short time where Joseph would be the leader of God's people, who would later become the nation of Israel. So the woman is the nation of Israel. Quite often in the Old Testament, a woman is used of the nation of Israel. There's a place or two where Israel is called the wife of God. And actually, Israel got so bad that God said, I'm going to divorce you because you've been unfaithful to me. So the woman is Israel. Verse 2, she being with child cried, travailing in birth pains, and experienced pain to be delivered. Those of you that had children, you tell us how bad it is, the birth pains. Probably here, this isn't a normal human being. And speaking of normal pregnancy and normal birth pains, this is using Israel in the figure of a woman going to have a child. Of course, the child is the Messiah, Greek Christos, the anointed one, Jesus of Nazareth. And probably what it means here is that the promise God would give them a Messiah. Because they needed deliverance, and we needed help to take care of our sin problem. In the beginning, Eve was tempted, and she sinned, and she ate her husband Adam, who was with her, probably heard the whole thing, and he sinned. Mankind fell, and all of their descendants are born sinners with that sin nature. But in the very beginning, we had a promise. And Genesis 3:15, the seed of the woman will crush, understand the Hebrew means the head. The seed of the woman will crush the head of the serpent. So one day there's going to be a woman who will have a child, and that child will utterly defeat the serpent in Genesis, the dragon, Satan, Lucifer, the devil. But over the years, and of course we have different promises, in Genesis 12, God said to Abraham, in one of your descendants will all the families of the earth be blessed. The Messiah. To David, you will have a descendant, and he will sit on your throne, and he will have an everlasting kingdom. Jesus asked the people of the Messiah, whose son is he? Well, they knew that, the son of David. Isaiah 53, the suffering servant, which is where we are on Wednesday nights. The suffering servant will take on and bear the sins of the world so that our sins can be forgiven and we can be spiritually healed. But I didn't know when he was coming. And Israel, the Jewish people, when they became a nation, they had their ups and downs, and mostly downs because they disobeyed God. And understand there were many Jewish women through the years that would pray, Lord, let me be the mother of the Messiah. They were looking for the Messiah to be born, but they experienced many terrible things as Jews, as a nation of Israel. So we go to number 2, the second sign, the dragon wants to kill Messiah, and that's verses 3 and 4. And there appeared another sign in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. Again, there's a later verse in Revelation. The dragon is the serpent, the devil, Satan. They're all the same individual. So this is obviously the devil. Red is symbolic of death. The rider on the red horse going to bring some destruction. Red, obviously, the color of blood that is shed. A great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. Well, why 10 horns, but only 7 heads and 7 crowns? When we go back to Daniel 7 through 8, Daniel had a vision of 4 great kingdoms. The last would be the Roman Empire. We believe the Roman Empire will be revived in the last days with the Antichrist at the head of that. The 4th kingdom, that beast, and in that kingdom you have 10 horns, represents 10 kings or 10 kingdoms. But another little horn appears and gets rid of 3 horns. So I have to take my shoes off. 10 minus 3, that leaves 7. So 7 kings or 7 kingdoms are vanquished or put under the rule of the Antichrist. And even though you have 7 kingdoms, you only have 7 heads and 7 crowns. 7 being a perfect number, indicating completeness. I believe 10 is a complete number. There will be a time during the 7-year tribulation that the Antichrist, with the dragon's help, will absolutely rule this world completely. Now, it won't be all at once. I believe the first 3.5 years he'll be trying to expand his kingdom. And then also, in Revelation 13:1, the beast rises out of the sea, and this is the Antichrist. And guess what? He has 10 horns, 7 heads, and 7 crowns. By the way, the word for crown in both these places are diadems, which are kingly crowns. So the beast, the Antichrist, Revelation 13, will rule with the help of the devil, the dragon, Satan. And there appeared another sign in heaven, behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads, ruling the world for a while completely. Verse 4, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and it cast them to the earth. Now we go way back in the past. And I believe are the events in Isaiah 14:12 through 15. You want to read that later, we won't read it now. This is where Lucifer, and I believe Lucifer means light bearer, the original name of the devil. And there he wanted to have God's place. He wanted the place of the Most High. And guess what? He didn't win. He lost. And he was booted out of heaven, though he still has access. But the devil is not in hell. He doesn't rule in hell. That's a myth. The devil is where in this world running to and fro as a lion seeking whom he may devour. He goes to heaven to accuse the brothers. But he comes back to do as much pain and inflict as much damage upon humanity, the Jews, Christians, this world that he can. And instead of the third part of the stars of heaven, Job uses the word stars for angelic beings. Now, this possibility is not in the Bible. I'm not going to be dogmatic, but I believe we only have one in the Bible that is called an archangel. I think possibly there could be three: Gabriel, Michael, and Lucifer. And that way, if you had three archangels, and the angels were all divided under them, and they would each have 1/3 of the angels, so that when Lucifer rebelled, that all of the angels under him went with him. Now again, this is speculation, doesn't say that in the Bible, but why 1/3? Anyway, that's something to think about. But anyway, 1/3 of the angels went with the devil. You think, man, that's a lot. But guess what? 2/3 didn't go. God's got twice as many angels as the devil does. Man, we outnumber them 2-1. We're going to win. And I think the book of Hebrews says the angels are ministering spirit sent out to minister to those who will be heirs of salvation. I believe the angels protect those who will be saved even before they're saved. I'll tell you this. For I believe I went with my dad fishing on the Arkansas River, and I sat on a big flat rock, and it slid into the river. And I didn't know how to swim at that time. My feet was not touching the bottom. My dad came and grabbed me by the hand and pulled me out. Was that an angel keeping me from going under? I don't know. But it could have been. So 2/3 of the angels are there to help those who will be heirs of salvation. Not just the ones who are saved, the ones who will be saved. Going on to verse 4, though, and the dragon stood before the woman. Remember, that's the nation of Israel, which was ready to be delivered or to devour. Literally, the word means to eat down. We say eat up. For to devour her child as soon as it was born. The words as soon as is the Greek word hatan, which means whenever. This is an indefinite temporal clause, means it will happen in the future, but you don't know when. The devil's not God. He's not equal to God. He does not know everything. Now, he probably knows the Bible better than you and I do, but he doesn't know how to interpret it because he doesn't have the Holy Spirit like you and I do. But he knows the Messiah is coming, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. He knows that the Messiah will be born, but he didn't know when. But he's always there in the shadows, ready to pounce upon the Messiah when he's born to kill him. That's what Satan wanted to do. We go to number 3, the Son, Jesus, prophesied to rule all nations, verse 5. And she, the woman, the nation of Israel, brought forth a man-child, Jesus of Nazareth, born in Bethlehem, because that's what Micah 5:2 said he would be born there, even though Nazareth was the home of Mary for sure, and I think Joseph probably also, born in Bethlehem. And she brought forth a man-child. Boy, now we go from his birth, about 2,000 years ago, to what in the future, who is to rule all nations with a rod of iron. That will be during the 1,000-year millennial reign. Psalm 2, 7-9, the Son will be given the heathen and the uttermost parts of the earth, and he will break them with a rod of iron. In Revelation 19:15, when Jesus returns the second coming, riding on that white horse, it says he will rule with a rod or staff of iron. That's future. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. That's the ascension. So notice here, chronologically, we're all over the place. We're from the birth of Jesus, then we go to 1,000-year millennial reign, and then you go back to Jesus lived in this world, had a ministry for probably 3.5 years, was crucified, raised from the dead on the third day, and for 40 days he made various appearances to people to prove he had risen from the dead. And then he ascended, of which the apostles and other believers saw that. Our child was caught up unto God. By the way, the word caught up is from the Greek word harpazo, which is the word used in 1 Thessalonians 4 of what we call the rapture, when we are caught up unto heaven. After dead in Christ are raised, and we are living or raised, we see that we glorified body caught up into heaven, meet Jesus in the air, and so will we ever be with the Lord. So Jesus is caught up unto God and to his throne in heaven, where now he sits on the right hand of God the Father. On 1:10:1, the Lord Yahweh said to my Lord Adonai, sit here on my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. That's where Jesus is right now. Right hand of God the Father, waiting for the enemies, all of his enemies, the devil and all those who follow him to be defeated. 3 lessons. Lesson number 1, Satan opposes God. Ever since he rebelled as Lucifer, he has tried to destroy God's people, the Jews when they became a people, and when they became a nation, Israel, Christians, really all humanity. Satan has always tried to defeat God's purposes. There in the beginning, he tempts Eve, and he succeeds. She stands, and Adam also. Joseph, there was a 7-year famine on the earth after 7 years of plenty. They didn't know that, but God knew that was coming. And so he gave that dream to Pharaoh, and Joseph was there in place to interpret the dream and give wise advice. Like, man, you need to find a wise man, and during the 7 years of plenty, you need to gather as much food as you can, because as good as this is, coming in 7 years, it's going to be that much worse, 7 years of famine, and you must hoard up food so that we won't starve to death. And Joseph had to go through a lot of stuff to get to second in command in Egypt, which he did. But God placed him there so we could say not only Egypt, but the rest of the civilized world, which included Jacob, his father, and his brothers, and all of their families. So, your famine, maybe that was an attempt by the devil to destroy Israel, Jacob. Later on, that they went to Egypt, they stayed, and a Pharaoh rose that didn't know Joseph and what he had done, and enslaved Israel, the Jews, and they grew so much, even being slaves, that Pharaoh said, "This too many people. We got to do something, or they're going to side with their enemies and overrun us." So this is what we'll do. We're going to command that all the baby boys be killed by the midwives. Well, they wouldn't do that. Then he commanded, let all the baby Hebrew boys born be thrown into the river, that is the Nile. They didn't do that. That was an attempt by the devil to destroy Israel. You destroy the Jews, get rid of the men, the women would be absorbed into the other races. That'd be the end of the Jews, and no Messiah. In the book of Esther, Haman hated the Jews because Mordecai would not bow down to him like everyone else did. And he had a plot to destroy all the Jews completely. Well, how'd that work out? Well, the gallows that he chose to hang Mordecai, he himself was hanged on. Herod the Great. Jesus was born, and wise men came out of the east. Where is he that is born, King of the Jews? We have seen his star in the east, and we have come to worship him. Where is he? Well, Herod found out where he was, Bethlehem, and being a very crafty evil man, he said, well, you know what? Go and find that precious baby and then come and tell me where he is, where I can go and worship him also. Lie, lie, lie. His plan, he was so messed up that he thought even his own family members were plotting to get rid of him and become king. He had his own family members killed, and where one guy said, I would rather be here as pig than one of his family members because I'd have a better chance of living. So Joseph was warned in a dream, go to Egypt, for Herod will try to seek the child to destroy it. And God saved Jesus that way, and the gold, frankincense, and myrrh would be there to finance their trip and stay in Egypt. What did Herod do? He sent his soldiers to Bethlehem and killed all the baby boys born 2 years and under. That's the devil trying to get rid of the Jews, trying to get rid of the Messiah. Then Hitler, what did he want to do? Get rid of all the Jews. How about Iran? They've had many generals that bragged, we're going to destroy Israel. We're going to get nuclear bombs and we're going to bomb them off the map. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, which are financed by Iran to do that job. Well, that didn't quite work out, did it? And you know the saying today, from the river to the sea, let Palestine be free. And you got idiots that repeat that and don't know what it means in taking Hamas side or Palestinian side. And by the way, you shouldn't call them Palestinians. The word comes from the Philistines. And what that means from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, let's start in the Jordan River, let's get all the Jews, and let's push them into the Mediterranean Sea and kill every last one of them. We don't want a two-state solution. We want a one-state solution in Palestine, but no Israel, and all the Jews dead. That is Satan's doing. And of course, in the 7 years, you have the Antichrist who will make a better agreement to start the 7 years, will allow the Jewish temple to be built the first 3.5 years. Jews will have temple worship. But he will break that agreement and will desecrate the temple, the abomination of desolation, mentioned in Daniel, repeated by Jesus, and will demand that he be worshipped as God, and demand that they worship the dragon, the devil. The last 3.5 years, he will really go after the Jews. And so, come back next week to see what God does about that. I'm sneaky, ain't I? Lesson number 2, Jesus will rule. He will rule as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He'll rule in Israel on the seat of his father David, ancestor David, for 1,000 years. And God will have an everlasting rule. Number 3, join the winning side if you haven't already. God's going to win. Jesus is going to win. The devil, the dragon, Lucifer, the serpent, Satan, they're defeated. They're already defeated. They're just waiting their sentence to be carried out. If you haven't committed to Jesus as Lord, and do that today and don't put it off. Let this be your day of salvation. May God bless his word, and may we serve a living God, and may we be victorious in our faith. Praise the Lord. Dennis, would you close us in prayer?